it's good to walk in pairs. So maybe if we will walk in pairs, we can help each other along.
That's actually a great idea. And that's one of the reasons why we keep having these classes week after week. It's more than a pair, it's a group, walking in a group perhaps, and trying to help each other along on a journey which is sort of swimming upstream compared to going with the stream and with the culture that has led to so much disease in our country. So we're really happy that you're here and hope you come to a few meetings to check it out, see what you think. And if you like it, you'll keep coming some more. And if you don't, you can go online and view the archive sessions, and still get the information that you need. Scott's done a really great job of keeping up the website, and it's got some magnificent educational material that can guide you on a path without forcing you to come to meetings.
This is for those that are new, this is good to come tonight and next week because it's just really informal. We can just answer questions, just kind of chat. And then January 3rd, we'll be starting the whole year of more formal classes over again. And so I'll be doing my introduction on January 3rd. And then the next week, Charlie will do his introduction. And then we'll do a couple weeks of meal preparation and planning classes. And then we have various topics. And if you're curious on the other topics that we've done this year, you just look in the class archives for 2022 and you can see all the different topics that we cover each week. And some of the classes are more formal with some PowerPoint presentations and more formal education, and others are just more open forum for people to ask questions and kind of get more feedback and stuff. So we try to kind of mix it up a little bit. This is coming up on our 4th year of doing, 3 years of the online classes. We started them in April of 2020. And so, we'll be getting close to 3 years for those. And Charlie and I have done them for many years before that, live before the pandemic.
So we have a couple new people. I don't see other new names, but we'll keep checking. And if there is someone new, we are always curious as to how you found out about the classes. And obviously, you know each other and came into contact with Scott, I believe it was, perhaps, and wound up in the classes here. So are there any questions, any thoughts from anybody in the group who has anything to share? Any problems you're having, any success issues, or any just questions from anyone?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
From this afternoon, Charlie, what did you say the benefit of mustard powder was?
So when you add a pinch of mustard powder, that has the enzyme to treat, if you're cooking broccoli, it will convert, I can't remember what it converts, but it converts it to sulforaphane. And so if you cook the broccoli, it'll destroy that enzyme and you won't get the benefits of sulforaphane. But if you add a pinch of mustard powder, even if you've cooked the broccoli, you will get the full benefits. Is that what you were interested in?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just a pinch of mustard powder.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Marcia. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts?
So I'm new, so I'm gonna have, I guess, a lot of questions as we go on. But I'll ask just maybe a few today because I want to learn from the rest of you. In fact, I want to start with I think what the Marcia said there about mustard. I have heard, and I want to know if this is just folktales. I've heard that if you're eating a fruit, if you're eating mixed fruit, that you should not eat any fruit with watermelon together. Is that kind of the same principle then? There's something in some other fruits would destroy the watermelon counterbalances or counteracts the other fruits?
I think you'll find there's a whole lot of myths that we live under. And I've not heard that one before. Scott, have you?
No, not that there's any interaction. I know that watermelon is a little bit higher on the glycemic index compared to other fruits. It's a little bit lower in fiber than, say, berries and apples and things that are a little bit more fibrous. But yeah, you shouldn't be discouraged from eating watermelon. Just maybe just eating a wide variety of fruit is always a good idea, especially getting lots of berries because they're the highest in fiber. But I haven't heard anything of any interaction between watermelon with other fruit.
Micaiah, I have 4 servings of fruit for breakfast, different kinds: bananas, blueberries, prunes, mango, whatever.
Oh.
And I mix them all.
And just to fill you in, the sulforaphane is, so cruciferous vegetables, one of their big anti-cancer properties is a chemical called sulforaphane. And it's really high in like broccoli sprouts, for example. And so if you take a cruciferous vegetable, whether it's a Brussels sprout, cauliflower, broccoli, and you chop it and you let it rest for a bit, the enzyme converts into the sulforaphane, which is that anti-cancer property. But if you steam it right away and don't chop it and let it rest, then you destroy the enzyme that makes the sulforaphane. But then if you, like Charlie said, if you do a pinch of mustard powder, that contains the enzyme, and then you'll still get the full benefits of the sulforaphane. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat cruciferous vegetables. They're still healthy. It's just to try to get that extra bump in sulforaphane, the anti-cancer chemical.
And we love the questions, as many as you want.
This thing about you guys saying mustard seed is good with broccoli, it kind of sounds like something you'd said earlier in an earlier video with turmeric and it clearing free radicals as an antioxidant, and then adding, I guess, black pepper to it to make it activate.
Correct.
It's kind of cool to go
Absolutely.
activating.
Very good. You're a very good student. Yeah. So it's actually by 1,000%. So there's an enzyme in black pepper that makes the turmeric that much more of an antioxidant. So it destroys the free radicals. And so so the actual yellow pigment in turmeric is called curcumin, and curcumin is the actual anti-inflammatory property. And so when you go to Costco and you see turmeric capsules with black pepper, I always have patients say, they think that somebody's pulling their leg. It's like, really need to have the black pepper? It's like, yeah. And of course they charge tons for it in a capsule form at Costco, but you can just put it in your cooking, just a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric on whatever you're cooking that's savory, soups, salads, stir fries, whatever. Throw just a 1/4 teaspoon on your food, and then a pinch of black pepper, and you got your anti-inflammatory effect. And I'm always amazed how many actual lay people that, doctors that don't know anything about nutrition actually know about that. So I have I've heard a lot of orthopedic surgeons say, oh yeah, my orthopedic surgeon told me to take turmeric. So that's one of those nuggets that they seem to know, but but too bad they don't know about the rest of the power of nutrition. But that's one thing that seems to have gotten through.
Marcia.
Yeah, has anybody, I read this the other day, I can't remember from where. Has anyone heard of putting vinegar or baking soda in your beans when you soak them? To cut down on the, supposedly it's supposed to cut down on your bloating and stuff.
I've never heard of doing that. If you have bloating, I've heard of using Beano. I've heard of just starting out with smaller quantities and allowing your microbiome to build up normal bacteria so that they can digest that over time. And, go slow and then sort of build up if you're having a problem. But most people really get through it. If they have a little gas initially, it usually clears pretty quickly, and the odor is a lot less because the amino acids have less sulfur compared to the animal amino acids, so it doesn't have the odor connected with the gas.
I
So-
still have a lot of gas, so I don't know what's causing it.
Well, sometimes you can have gas swallowing air. That's probably the most common cause. A number of us are air swallowers. I swallow a fair amount of gas. Or air. Not, I guess air is gas. I swallow a fair amount of that when I eat. I've, worked in the emergency department for 30 years, and you kind of eat on the run, and you gobble your food pretty fast. And I've had to kind of calm down a little bit from that. But if you happen to be used to swallowing air with your foods, you're going to have extra gas, and it may not be related to the beans. It may be just your eating style.
I could be eating pretty fast because, when growing up, you had to eat, so nobody else took.
Yeah, one of the tricks is to chew. I don't do this myself. I should, but is to chew each bite 20 times before you swallow it. So if you eat really slowly, eat mindfully, chew thoroughly, you'll tend to swallow less air than if you're kind of gulping your food. And I was the same way. Back when I was a paramedic, I was always like eating really fast because it's like you never knew when you were going to get a call, and so you're hungry, and then that's old habits die hard, and then so yeah, I'm always trying to make myself eat slower because that's vast majority of excess gas and bloating is from swallowed air, just like Charlie said.
That could be because I do eat my food pretty fast for some reason. Habit, like you said, habit. So just need
Okay.
to try to slow down.
Good. Meryl, next.
Thank you. I wanted to also comment on the turmeric and the black pepper. My understanding is not only should you have have turmeric with black pepper, but with the fattiest meal you have of the day. So I always have it whenever I eat my flax meal. So I actually put my turmeric in my morning oat groats. And I add other spices as well, cinnamon and cloves, and I make like an exotic, oat groat breakfast for myself because I've always heard in order to absorb the benefits of the turmeric, you also have to have it with fat. And since I eat a low-fat diet, my highest fat meal is the one with the flax seeds. I wanted to put that out there. I don't know if Dr. Ross and Scott would disagree with me about the fat, but that's what I've always learned.
What do you say, Scott? I had to take off for a minute.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about turmeric and fat, needing fat to absorb it. I hadn't heard that, so that I did have to look it up to see. But
I haven't heard that you need fat to absorb turmeric either.
But I guess I usually put it on whatever I'm cooking. It's savory, which is going to usually have
I think that's
some
why,
fat in it.
yeah, I believe that's why in Indian cooking, they, and you'll have like a latte with turmeric and black pepper in it, with their milk, it's a fat, it's with fat. So, yeah, I might be wrong, but that's what I've heard repeatedly.
It's true with certain nutrients too. Like, when you have, like, if you were making a smoothie, you put a handful of, flax in there, or nuts or seeds or something, because then you absorb I know you absorb a lot of the other micronutrients better from the vegetables and fruits when you have a little bit of fat mixed with it. So that nugget I do know.
But I also think about Dr. Greger and his statement of the body is not stupid. It kind of knows how to hang on to the elements it needs. And if you're eating some fat throughout the day, it probably stores it in areas that it can kind of use it when it needs it. With that said, there is the issue of you do get better iron absorption if you're having some vitamin C with foods that have iron in them, you know, and so there may be something to it. I just don't remember anything connected with needing fat for turmeric. Okay, Micaiah.
Yeah, I just when you started talking about the myths about food, one of the questions I have is the supplements. I'm 56 years old in January. Apart from the vitamin D, which I am usually very low, and B12, what else do I need to take on a regular basis when it comes to supplements?
Yeah, since we covered vitamin D and B12, another one would be iodine. So as long as you're, as usually we say with salt, we don't recommend, adding too much salt, avoiding processed food, which is where 70 to 80% of all the salt in the American diet comes from, is processed packaged foods. So if you're not cooking with it, and then you decide, okay, I want to get a little iodine, and you want a little bit of salt on your food, then that's the time to put a pinch of salt on the food when it's plated at the dinner table, and then make sure you use iodized salt, because then you'll get the iodine that you'll need. The other ways to get iodine are in sea vegetables, so like nori, wakame, some of the other sea vegetables,
And dulse.
And dulse, yeah, that's the other one. Dulse, you get iodine in those. If you're not using iodized salt and you're not eating a regular supply of sea vegetables, then you might want to take a supplement. And I'm in that category. I don't enjoy sea vegetables that much, and I'm really salt sensitive, so I try to avoid salt as much as I can. And so I do take it's made from kelp, so it is a made from a sea vegetable, and it's an iodine supplement. And I think it's 250 milligrams, but I don't take it every day. I just take it, 3 or 4 days a week or something. But yeah, if you're getting it it'd be better to get it from the pinch of iodized salt, or eat sea vegetables, because they're good for you anyway. So that's iodine. And then, yeah, we could have a debate about long chain fatty acids, DHA, EPA. And so we don't talk about it. We do talk about it, but we don't have a hard line on it, because the science is kind of back and forth on it, whether you should take a DHA EPA supplement, because it does thin the blood. And if you fell and hit your head, you could have a higher risk of having a brain bleed. But there is some science that says a little extra omega-3 in the form of DHA EPA might be good for preventing dementia. So the other debate about that is, if somebody's following a whole food plant-based diet, so there's this whole thing, I guess we have time, I'll go into it. There's omega-6 and omega-3 fats. And so omega-6 are essential fats, omega-3 are essential fats. So which means that we have to get them from our diet. We don't make them. And so we have to have omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-6 fatty acids are found in like oils and a lot of different kinds of processed foods. And there is some naturally in plant foods as well, and animal products as well. And we get so much more omega-6 than we do omega-3. And omega-3 is mostly in like fish, and it's in flaxseed, chia seed, walnuts, leafy greens. So those all contain omega-3, but they tend to be short chain omega-3 fatty acids, which are kind of the building blocks of the long chain omega-3 fatty acids. And so we need, when we get the omega-3, the building blocks from the whole plant foods, one argument is that, well, okay, we get plenty of short chain omega-3s from the whole plant foods we're eating, and so we're probably fine. But then some people say, well, but we're maybe not getting enough of the long chain. But the thing is the omega-6 fatty acids inhibit the elongation of the omega-3 fatty acids. And so the ideal ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is anywhere between 1:1 and 4:1. So 4 parts omega-6 for every 1 part omega-3. And so if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you're getting about a 4-to-1 ratio usually, right around there. And so the argument for against taking long chain DHA EPA is that if you're already getting an ideal ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, you're probably making plenty of long chain omega-3. You can get a blood test to find out what your ratio, or where you're at on your omega-3, long chain omega-3 levels are. But this is getting pretty complicated. But the thing is that most of the foods, like olive oil, for example, a lot of people think, oh, olive oil is good for you. It's got omega-3 fatty acids. So yeah, well, it does have a small amount of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, but its ratio is not very good. It's 14-to-1, 14 parts omega-6 to every 1 part omega-3. So it's actually decreasing your long chain omega-3 amounts in your body. So that's why another reason that olive oil and oils are not good. And because they contain so much omega-6, the different types of oils. So that's why one of the reasons we avoid oil. And so, yeah, with all that being said, if you decide you want to take a long chain EPA DHA supplement, I take one once a week just because of the debate about it. And you can buy that in a vegan form of that in a capsule. I think it's made from algae, I think, in a vat. And it's long chain EPA DHA. So we already talked about vitamin D, we talked about B12, and then the iodine, and then the long chain EPA DHA. Other than that, there really isn't any other. So you don't need a multivitamin, you don't need all the other. We've talked about calcium, that calcium supplements can increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. So you want to get your calcium from food, not from supplements. Anything you want to add to that discussion,
The only
Charlie?
thing I'd add is a Brazil nut for the selenium.
Oh, right. I eat one of those once or twice a week.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There aren't a lot of foods that have selenium in them. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a multivitamin, but Brazil nuts have a high amount of selenium. And so once or twice a week to have a Brazil nut is probably a healthy choice, but I don't know if it's a requirement. I don't think Esselstyn's patients who lived over, 12, 20 years were eating Brazil nuts. He said no nuts, no, no avocados, no oils. And, those people survived without eating Brazil nuts, I believe. Just a thought, Scott.
Yep. For the people with the end-stage heart disease, that was the context for the new people for Dr. Esselstyn, who wrote the book Prevent Reverse Heart Disease. So he took patients that were basically, already had bypasses and stents, and wasn't many other choices for them. And so he put them on a 100% whole food plant-based diet with no added oils, no processed foods, no, like Charlie said, really strict even within whole food plant-based nutrition. And because he's trying to reverse their heart disease, open up their arteries. And so, success with those patients.
And they all lived for many, many years. Okay, any other questions as we continue to pursue this journey? Yes, go ahead, Ariston.
So I had a question about meal timing and meal frequency. I'm not sure if it's better for somebody who's like pre-diabetic to have like 3 standard meals a day, or like 5 to 6, or a large dinner or something like that. And with that note, I've heard that fasting can produce really great benefits for a lot of people. I don't know if that's an untenable solution for people that are pre-diabetic, but can you incorporate that into your lifestyle?
You can, if you don't mind fasting. I usually, I don't like to fast myself. I don't ever want to be hungry. And yet, if someone is really having trouble controlling their diabetes, if they go on a fast, man, they can jumpstart themselves, from what I understand, and do quite well with doing fasting. So, this is an option that you get to make the choice on as to what you want to do with your body. I find the majority of people who actually choose to do totally whole plant foods as they're grown in nature, they reduce the amount of fat in their diet to such an extent that they reduce their insulin resistance, and they have a long-term sustainable way to not only totally reverse their diabetes, get off of all pills, and not even be called diabetic any longer if they do that, and it doesn't require starving oneself or fasting or whatever it is. There are some benefits, maybe Scott can talk to about longevity, that there have been some studies that may indicate you may have a little longer lifespan if you practice some intermittent type fasting things. And I tend to do that by not eating food for about a 12, I think 16 hours is the time. I don't know what the best time is. I think if you do 16 hours, Scott will be able to tell you that better than I will. But bottom line, hey, you can just put that in the rear view mirror, the diabetes, if you do a whole food plant-based diet, pretty much. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so first with fasting, if somebody has diabetes, with pre-diabetes, it doesn't matter, it's fine. But if you have diabetes and you're on any diabetes medications, then you really have to be in close contact with your medical provider if you're going to try fasting. Because if you're on insulin or you're on glipizide, glyburide, one of those, you could get into trouble with low blood sugar if you fast. So I would recommend against fasting for someone that's on diabetes medications unless they're in real close contact with their medical provider. So that being said, for insulin resistance, like Charlie was talking about, which is the cause of type 2 diabetes, and even it has a role it plays in even with people with type 1 diabetes, because it's a lot of people with type 1 diabetes, even though they'll always be on insulin, they also often have insulin resistance, which is detrimental to your health. And so with intermittent fasting, there's some benefits there and also what we call time restricted feeding. So with you always want to try to eat more of your calories earlier in the day. So we kind of say eat like a king for breakfast, eat like a prince for lunch, and eat like a pauper for dinner. Because the reason for that is something called the circadian rhythm. So whether you work graveyard or work day shift, we have a circadian rhythm, and it runs on a 24-hour clock. And it just so happens that the calories we eat earlier in the day, say at 8 o'clock a.m., are worth 30% less than the calories we eat at 8 o'clock p.m. So it turns out we are more insulin resistant. Even a normal person without diabetes is more insulin resistant later in the day. So like, after 8 p.m. and through the night, we're actually less sensitive to our own insulin. We have more insulin resistance. And so you're better off eating more of your calories earlier in the day. So that's one aspect. And then also there's some, weight loss benefits and some longevity benefits to the intermittent fasting, whether you do like Charlie said, an 8-hour feeding window. So say you wanted to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you would eat from 8 o'clock and stop eating after, say, 4 o'clock. And then you don't eat again until 8 o'clock the next day. Or some people start at 10 a.m. and then eat over an 8-hour window and then don't eat for 16 hours. So that's called intermittent fasting. And if you want to learn a lot more about fasting, we actually had a whole class on fasting in the archives you could watch. But so did that answer your question about that?
It did. Thank you. Yeah.
Good question.
Eric.
There are some other interesting studies that show that intermittent fasting or fasting can be good for things like depression, for rheumatoid arthritis. It actually boosts the power of chemotherapy. So people do recommend generally fasting around your chemotherapy time. There's also, the other thing is that your body is smart enough to know that when it's sick, it doesn't want food. And people think you got to try to eat, of course you got to drink, you got to stay well hydrated, but it turns out that you don't need to eat. And actually there may be an immune response, immune boosting function when you're fasting. So there's some studies that show that. So it's probably a good idea when you're sick to listen to your body.
Very good. Yep.
Thank you. Nancy,
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to pop back for a moment to the question about absorption of turmeric curcumin, because I had heard the same thing. And so I took a moment to recheck where I had been finding that. And University of Massachusetts and some other, there's a list, quite a few sources do say that it's very hard to for the body to use curcumin without oil. But I did find one thing that might be helpful is that they said that lecithin is the compound that is actually helping the absorption. So I don't know if you, might at some point want to check on that, because if lecithin could help those people who are trying to get the health benefits of turmeric and curcumin, it would be good to know. Okay.
so lecithin, is that one of those compounds that increases the TMAO? Can't
No.
remember.
No,
I
that's
think
carnitine and
Carnitine
and choline is the other one.
and choline, not lecithin. Okay.
Okay, and I don't know, I had heard it, and so I just made a very quick cursory check to see if that was something that might be pursued a little more, not tonight. I realize you can't do that on the spot. There's too much to know.
Well, this is one of those topics that can be kind of put, in your brain where you're reading and studying and waiting to learn about it over a period of time.
Yeah.
We don't obviously have the answer tonight,
Yeah.
but we'll keep our ears and eyes open. And we've listened to a lot of seminars and a lot of people talk on this, and it's a little foreign in my experience. What I mean by foreign, I just haven't heard of it. And Scott's been to a lot of seminars recently over the last couple of years, as he's been studying for the lifestyle medicine certification. And, it likely would have come up at some point in his experience, is what my guess is.
Yes, and I'm not contradicting that. I'm just saying, I know that we're all searchers and it's a very big topic. So I actually turned my camera on originally because I wanted to ask a little bit more about magnesium.
Yeah.
And whether or not, is there like a best time of day to take it, and does it fight with any other compounds? Like I know a number of people who are taking it at night before they go to bed so they don't get leg cramps and so that they sleep better and are more relaxed. And I think we talked about that a little bit, but then I had this ongoing question I've got is, does that fight with anything else that you may be doing or taking at the time? And you may not know.
So again, magnesium is, you're talking about magnesium in its pill supplement form,
Yes,
as opposed
right.
to magnesium that you're getting from the whole food.
Right.
I get my magnesium from the whole foods. Of course, I'm not up at night with leg cramps and those sorts of things, possibly because of the diet that I'm eating.
Yeah.
And, so before I would encourage anyone to be taking magnesium supplements, which are not necessarily regulated, can have some contaminants in them and other kinds of problems. You're just not exactly sure. I would encourage people to really try to increase their, veggie intake, particularly the green intake that they have in their diet. And perhaps that will provide them with enough magnesium. Now, if someone says, I've tried that, I'm eating greens 6 times a day, like Dr. Esselstyn recommends that I do, and I'm still having this problem, I'm going to take magnesium, then the question is it better, when is it best to take it? And I'm going to see, Scott, have you heard of anything? What's your thoughts on that?
No, I haven't had anyone take magnesium for any reason other than constipation. So
Oh.
it can give you some diarrhea, but and I know
I
some
don't
people
know
on
if
their labs.
constipation causes leg cramps. That's a question
Yeah.
I can pursue. Well, I was in a holistic wellness group that that meets every week today, and it was a big subject. And several people were saying, "Oh yes, I take that at night," and they're giving recommendations to each other, and they don't have any Charlie or Scott in the room. I mean, it's just people sharing experiences. So
Yeah. So there's a lot of placebo effect. There's a lot of, I believe this is going to work. And so it does work. And,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
hard to
yeah.
sort through that sometimes. So
yeah.
it's not like we can tell those people, no, the magnesium doesn't work for you because they are obviously committed. This is really helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
But to give that recommendation to others, we're not inclined to do that unless someone has really demonstrated to have magnesium deficiency. There could be a problem if someone had renal failure. Giving magnesium could be a problem also.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, Micaiah, are you having fun yet?
Yes, I'm having a lot of fun.
We are too.
This is where I needed to be, just to hear all this information. I'm soaking in, I'm taking all the notes I can.
I can see that. That's great.
So I have a quick question about sleep. So
Meat, like
Sleep?
beef and chicken and fish.
Oh,
sleeping, sorry.
sleep.
Oh,
Yeah.
sleep.
Yes.
Sleep. Okay.
And so I don't know, I've heard from all sorts of people, sources, all this, about what's a good length of time to sleep. Now, obviously, you can sleep as long as you can, but if, in our lives, we're busy, we need to do this, we need to budget for the sleep time. How much sleep time is good for an adult?
7 to 7.5 hours is the number that
Exactly.
comes to my mind. It's I'm going to turn it over to Scott, though. He's been to the latest lecture.
Yeah, so it's officially 7 to 9 hours for an adult, but it's going to depend on, you don't definitely want to get at least 7. Some people need a little bit more, but it's also going to depend on your sleep quality. So if you're, if you don't have a good sleep environment, you're restless, I can talk a little bit about sleep hygiene, all the things that you want to the environment you want to create to have good sleep. But if you're taking sleep aids, you're on Ambien, you're on, even melatonin, you're on a bunch of different sleep aids, antihistamines and things, that's going to affect your sleep quality. So you might have good sleep quantity, but your quality might not be very good because there's, basically 4 cycles that you repeat throughout the night, your REM sleep, non-REM sleep, all those things. You got cycles that you go through 4 or 5 times throughout the night. And you want to be going through all of those cycles all those times. And so if you're taking some of these medications that affect sleep, it might help your sleep, help you fall asleep, but you might not be getting through all those good sleep cycles. So good sleep hygiene, some of the basic things are, and I have it on the class website with the 1-page handouts for lifestyle medicine and sleep. The sleep is one of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So their summary is all there on the website. But so you want to have a nice, cool, dark room with good airflow. You want to avoid blue light within a couple hours before bed. So blue light would be like your cell phone, your laptop, your television, things like that produce blue light, because what that blue light does is stimulates cortisol, which is your awake hormone, and it suppresses melatonin, which is your sleepy hormone. And so when it starts to get dark outside and you just kind of have white light, not blue light, and you can read with a white light, like a dim fluorescent light of some sort, something that is a little bit dim, can be dimmed. That's going to help promote melatonin and suppress cortisol. And then also some of the other things that increase cortisol and decrease melatonin, which you don't want if you're trying to fall asleep, is eating too close to bedtime. So eating actually stimulates cortisol because you're having to digest food. And of course, you want to avoid caffeine and alcohol. So alcohol make you sleepy, but it actually affects the sleep quality. So you wake up more often at night, can be more restless if you drink alcohol. And then you want to have, basically your bedroom is your place for sleep and not for entertainment. And as far as, televisions and things like that. And then others, sometimes pets can be distracting. Another thing that helps promote good sleep at night is to exercise in the late afternoon. So if you somehow could exercise in the late afternoon before you eat dinner, that's actually been shown to promote good sleep. Those are just a few of the things, but yeah, as long as you're getting at least 7 is good. And then another sign to see if you're getting enough sleep is, cat naps are okay. A lot of people think that, oh, I shouldn't, if I'm nappy in the afternoon, that means I'm not sleeping very well at night. That's not necessarily true. It's actually good cat naps are actually good, but a good rule of thumb for that would be if you doze off because you're reading or watching TV or something in the afternoon, if you only sleep for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, that's a good, we kind of call that a power nap. But if you sleep longer than 20 minutes, like closer to 30 minutes, that's usually a sign you're not probably getting enough sleep at night. So it's just a few tidbits, but I can always show you guys where those handouts are on the website if you want.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll go ahead and show that while someone else is keying up another question.
Okay.
Show. Let's see if I can get back here. Okay, so here's the class website, the home page. So if you go to resources, click on resources, and then let's see, I think I have it in handouts from classes. And you scroll down on handouts from classes, and then it's one that says lifestyle handout, nutrition to sleep. So if you click on that, here's all, you can download PDF here, or you can scroll, but I can click on download PDF, and it has all 6 of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. So there's nutrition, there's exercise, and it has a little summary of each of those, stress reduction, and then social connections. It's another pillar, avoiding risky substances, it's another pillar. And then here you go, lifestyle, sleep, health. So it kind of gives you sleep disruptors, tips for better sleep. There's some like resources, and actually has the how much sleep that each age group recommends. So there's just 7 to 9 hours for adults right there. And then gives you examples of things you can do to improve that. So there's that.
I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, just me and my dad like asking these questions, but
You're doing fine.
Yes. I was thinking about going on the diet with him, and one question, I don't know if it's a little bit outside the scope of this class, but I've been doing strength training for a while, and I was kind of concerned if I went on a vegan diet that I'd probably lose a lot of weight, a lot of muscle. Do you need to substitute for extra protein? I try to get like a gram of protein per body weight every day.
You need to see.
Is there anything?
Yeah, you need to see Game Changers. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Well,
Yeah,
that'll answer your question.
So go on to Netflix. It's a documentary called The Game Changers, and it shows all these professional athletes, bodybuilders that are all plant-based. And because you'll get enough just by eating enough calories, you'll get enough protein. So you don't have to worry about protein as far as numbers of grams. I mean, you can figure out, okay, well, 0.8 grams per kilogram of what your ideal lean body weight is kind of that's even twice as much as you really need. And so, but athletes need, maybe 10% more than the minimum. And so even 0.8 grams per kilogram would more than cover even a professional athlete. But you don't even have to even count that up or even think about that. And as long as you're eating enough calories, you'll always get enough protein. So that's not usually a problem. Some of the bodybuilders that are burning 5,000-6,000 calories a day and they're really putting on tons of muscle, sometimes they have a hard time getting enough calories. It doesn't really matter what food they're eating, whether they're plant-based or omnivores. It's just trying to get enough food in because of all the calories they're burning and all the muscle they're adding. So a lot of them do use like smoothies. They'll do like, hemp protein powder, pea protein powder, things like that, because they're they got to get more calories in. They just can't, they're just eating constantly. So they have to, supplement a little bit with some of the plant protein powders and things like that. But for 99% of those of us out there, don't really need to worry about that even. So, but yeah, I would definitely watch The Game Changers. It's really, really a great movie.
Thanks. Okay, yeah, it's on my watch list.
Yeah, so you don't want to be hungry if you're really exercising the heck out of your body, using tons of calories. Then you may have to add some foods that have a higher calorie density with them. And that could be foods like avocado, could be nuts and seeds, those sorts of things where you would, and for sure you want to get in an adequate quantity of beans and potatoes, lentils, whole grains like oatmeal. You want to have bigger portions than you're used to, because the meat, dairy, and egg, 500 calories may fit in the palm of your hand. Whereas in order to get 500 calories out of plants, you need to eat something like a small volleyball worth of volume. And so if you are needing to get 3,000, 4,000 calories a day into your body, do you know how much you normally eat in calories?
Yeah, it's about 3,100 calories,
Yeah.
175
Yeah,
grams of protein.
so if you need 3,100, you need to eat some higher calorie density food. So a few more nuts, seeds, avocados, those sorts of things, which we discourage most of the members in our class from doing because they're trying to lose weight. and those are very high calorie density foods. So we tell them, don't be eating that. For someone like yourself, then you might want to be eating more of those.
And if you're athletic, you might also want to read this book, The Plant-Based Athlete. It's really good. I've read this. And it's the two authors are Robert Cheek and Matt Fraser. So one's like a endurance athlete, the other's a bodybuilder. So it's good balance. And they actually have recommendations for your diet plan if you're a bodybuilder versus building a lot of muscle bodybuilding versus a endurance athlete. But yeah, The Plant-Based Athlete, it's a really good book. So I'd recommend that along with watching The Game Changers.
I just want to leave
That's
you
really
with one athlete who holds the world record in miles run in a 24-hour period. His name is Scott Jurek. I don't know if you've heard of him before. He has a website, Scott Jurek. In 24-hour period, he ran not one marathon, 26.2 miles, not two, not three, 167 miles. And all he eats is plants. He gets enough protein.
You hear that, Dad? We gotta get up in the morning. We're the only thing.
And then there's,
Way to throw me under the bus, Dr. Ross.
and then there's Patrick Baboumian. So he's in The Game Changers. You'll see him. He's like the strongest man on earth. How much weight he can lift. So he's one of those guys that has to eat the protein powders and stuff, because you'll see him. He's actually huge. He's a big guy. So, but yeah, he can lift. I can't remember how many thousand. It was like 1,500 pounds or something like that. He carried it. And
Yeah.
I don't remember how much it was, but they show him in the movie.
Yeah, you got to watch The Game Changers. All right. Anybody else have questions, or even the same people? If you have more questions, we're good with that. That's what these sessions are for.
And just for the record, for the new ones, most of the people that are in the class right now have been here all year. They've been here for a lot of weeks in classes, so they're probably just taking it in.
I would like to also make a recommendation for the folks that are new to download the app nutritionfacts.org and get the Daily Dozen. Actually, that's the app, is the Daily Dozen by Dr. Michael Greger. And to look at his website, nutritionfacts.org. That will really help in figuring out where to even start in terms of your eating.
It's a free app. You just go to the App Store on your phone and plug in Daily Dozen and look for Dr. Greger Daily Dozen. It downloads in less than a minute, and it'll give you various food options and serving sizes, and you can all adjust that according to your needs. Thanks for that recommendation, Meryl.
Thank you. Actually, I did download it yesterday. One thing I saw there, it has this informational part where you can see which foods are in what classes it's talking about. So it was really nice. One question I probably had was, I like peanuts and I didn't see them over there. Well, I know maybe, in the kinds of where he lists nuts, there were no peanuts, and I was like, oh, is that means they're not good, or
It's because they're legumes. They're considered a legume.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So even though they're
Peanuts
called
are, yeah.
peanuts,
Yeah.
and they're a legume with a high quantity of fat. So,
Okay.
so that would be another thing that Ariston, you might want to incorporate some of that
You want to see?
into your diet, some peanut or peanut butter.
هذا ما تبوشته.
Nikki,
This is for Ariston. My son's 42 and he was raised vegetarian. He's probably pretty close to being all plant-based. When I was raising him, we had some dairy. And I was vegetarian from the time I was 15. But he has excelled in martial arts and has got a black belt, and he's done a lot of weight training, and he's just a big, gigantic, muscular guy. I don't know if anybody knows about Mr. Clean anymore, who's on the bottles, but just all muscle. But Peter's about twice as, his shoulders are, they're way, he's just gigantic and just super muscular. And when I was a kid, we'd see all these jokes about the scrawny vegetarian on the beach, and the muscle guy would come and kick sand in his face and things. And so Peter never ever had any meat, and he's just an incredibly strong guy. So that's just an anecdotal story for you.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's good to know.
thanks. Run.
Oh, hi, Charlie.
Hey, how you doing? Good to hear you.
Thank you. Good to listen to and see you too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, question I have is, if you're trying to control your blood sugar, what kinds of grains should we lean on more? Like barley and such. What do you recommend besides barley and quinoa?
So, barley, quinoa, kamut,
Amaranth.
amaranth is good. Even
Farro.
even rice is fine as far as whole grains. But if your sugars are not being controlled adequately, then you may want to have a few more veggies also, and not as much of the as much of the grains, although, you know, it's,
The whole grain's usually not the culprit. It's usually refined grain that's the culprit. So if you're eating tortillas or bread or, you know, bagels or anything that's been made with a refined grain, a refined flour, that's usually the problem, not the intact whole grain, like all the examples we just gave. But Charlie's right, though, if you're eliminating all those processed foods that are packaged and refined, and you've gotten rid of the oils and you've gotten rid of the animal products, I mean, those are all higher priorities than, you know, worrying about the grains. But if you've already gotten rid of all that stuff and you're still having some trouble with the blood sugar, then you might consider what Charlie said, maybe a little bit smaller portions of the whole grains and more green leafy vegetables, other non-starchy vegetables, a little bit higher proportions of those, if that's where you're at.
and
Yeah,
remember, the root cause of diabetes is not so much the grains, it's the fats in the diet. And where are you getting the fats? Usually from the oils that you use to cook with, or that you add to the salad dressing, or that get put into foods that are somewhat processed. So really be careful about avoiding those oils, and you'll probably get better control of the diabetes that way as the first strategy.
Sure, sure. Just one question, like if we have whole grain bread, you know, like 100% whole wheat with, let's say, 1 or 2 slices a day.
Great harvest.
Well, okay, so it's not that bread is bad. It's just that if you're not getting the benefits you want, you know, bread doesn't grow on a tree or it doesn't grow in the ground. It is not, it's a processed food. And when you process the grains, you chop them up and make them fine. It's sort of like the difference between eating a handful of peanuts and taking those peanuts and grinding them up into peanut butter. The peanut butter is ground up so fine, you get a lot more calories, a lot more fat from it than if you just chew on the peanuts that have the chunks that come down and that pass through your gut, and you don't absorb as much calories. So when you're eating bread, you're getting those whole grains that are chopped up so fine, your body can absorb all those extra calories and fats and whatever else is in there. And so, like I say, it's not that it's a bad food, bread, if you're not having to take medicine, you don't have diabetes, you don't have any problems, you can eat bread. But if you're not able to control the diabetes by eating slices of bread, I wouldn't eat them. I would try a month or two and see what happens when you just eat foods as they're grown in nature.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's like that analogy I've given before about, you know, the ice. So if you think of bread versus, let's say, you know, a wheat berry, just to make it an exact analogy. So a wheat berry is the whole grain that grows in the field, right? And then you can grind up a wheat berry and make flour out of it. And so the flour is like, if you took a whole bucket of shaved ice and threw it out on your front lawn on a hot summer day, it would melt really fast, right? That's the flour. High surface area, you've ground down the block of ice into shaved ice and you throw it out on the lawn, it melts really fast. It gets absorbed into your body, into your intestine really fast, spikes your blood sugar, increases insulin release because it's absorbed really fast. Whereas if you threw a block of ice out on your front lawn on a hot summer day, it would take a while for that to melt. And so that's your wheat berry, is the block of ice, right? So it's whole, it's intact. And so that's not going to allow your blood sugar to spike as fast, and your insulin response won't be as fast. And then you're getting all that fiber, and it's going down, and it's feeding your gut microbiome and all these things. And so that's just a good kind of thing to keep in mind. Is are you eating shaved ice, or are you eating a block of ice? You know, whole food versus a processed food.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, now someone like Ariston, who wants to add a few more calories in their diet, may want to eat some more bread if it's a whole grain bread. It may be on his diet, you know? He's burning up a lot of calories and maybe he needs to do that. These are great, fun questions. Keep them coming. We're having fun.
So I think I remember from the introductory video that you guys said that just 60 minutes of exercise can boost your body's absorption of glycogen into your muscles for like up to 3 days. Yeah, because we talked a little bit about sleep and nutrition, but is there any type of exercise that is better for the diabetes, or like maintaining your blood sugar, like versus strength or like endurance training, or like how long should you be doing it,
Yeah, when it comes to diabetes, I would say, so first of all, with exercise, do whatever exercise you'll do. So whatever movement that you'll do that you enjoy, that's the most important thing. But when it comes to, say you were going to compare walking to, doing some squats and arm weights and working your muscles, I would say that would be just as important as the walking, especially for someone with diabetes, because if you're using your muscles, it's not only the weight bearing and the load on your muscles is good for your bone health, but also using those muscles, like I talked about in the diabetes class, is that it basically, when you're exercising, the more muscle mass you have, the less insulin you need to absorb the glucose into your system. So you actually can burn more calories at rest with more muscle mass, and then you can also pull in more sugar from your bloodstream into your muscles to use for energy without as much insulin when you have exercising muscle. And you're referring to the effect of the exercise for up to 3 days after you've exercised, your insulin resistance goes down and your insulin sensitivity goes up, which are both good things for diabetes. And so, I would say really important to get that strength training in for someone with diabetes. But would want to minimize the weight bearing. Just endurance exercise is equally important. But just wanted to make that extra information about the muscles and people with diabetes. It's good for sleep. Good for sleep too. Exercise helps you sleep too. And that's really important to get good sleep too. With pretty much every medical condition, even diabetes, because if you have sleep apnea and you're not sleeping good at night, you're increasing your cortisol levels, and higher cortisol levels leads to more insulin resistance and weight gain and all of that. So sleep is vital.
And that brings us to stress. When you're talking about cortisol levels, which raise your blood sugar levels also, doing some meditation, yoga, having fun in your life, not worrying too much, getting too stressed out, are all very helpful in achieving your best health.
Yeah, check out Charlie's class on how our mind affects our health and how what we eat affects our mental health as well. Those are great classes. Get kind of more out of the box when it comes to, we talk so much science about the nutrition and nutrients and all that, but it's great. It's so important to focus on those other things too, behavior change and mindfulness and our mental health and being positive and grateful, and all those things are so important.
Eric.
I had a question for Jerry. I was wondering about what snack we should now leave for Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. It shouldn't be fat-laden cookies. And is there something else is Santa Claus on board with all this or not? I don't know.
That's
Santa Claus
really
plant-based. You see the picture of the ripped Santa Claus with the beard. He looks all cut. Plant-based Santa. He wouldn't be overweight.
Right.
Well, for Halloween, we went to dried fruit and nut snack. There was a Costco kind of treat, which seemed to work pretty well. Stayed away from any of the refined sugars and processing of the foods other than dehydrating fruit. That's our solution to the sweet issue. Anybody else?
I got a question.
Yes, Edward.
You've probably done a class or two on this already, but I'm trying to lower my blood pressure through any means. And diet. I feel like I could be doing a lot better in the diet.
So let's talk about, is your blood pressure really high? Are you having to take medicine for it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to get off of medicine, you might want to read Dr. Esselstyn's book, How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, because he talks about the health of your arteries and how you're going to get those arteries to heal. And if you listen, Dr. John McDougall has a really good video on hypertension also, and how people with high blood pressure have arteries that are sick, they're not healthy. So how do you get your arteries healthy? So you do that with a plant-based diet. McDougall would say with a starch diet. Esselstyn would say with a plant-based diet in which you're eating greens, a handful of greens 6 times a day, because the greens, the dark green leafies, combine with your saliva when you chew them, and they cause your arteries to relax and allow the inner lining to heal. And so for his heart patients who had a lot of them underlying high blood pressure, he would encourage them to eat greens 6 times a day. Take a handful throughout the day and keep bathing your arteries with that. There's more to high blood pressure than that, perhaps. The oils that you might have in your diet cause your arteries to constrict down. They kind of close down and clamp down, which raises your blood pressure. The greens produce nitric oxide, which relax your arteries, dilate them out, and lower your blood pressure. So the more dark green leafies you eat throughout the day and the less oil you get in your diet, the lower your blood pressure will be. And then that brings us to the stress in your life and the cortisone levels rising and the adrenaline levels rising, causing your heart to beat faster and harder and raising your blood pressure. So it's extremely important for you to potentially take a course on meditation, do yoga, do whatever you can to calm your body and alleviate the stress. And if you combine all those things and you add in some exercise, walking, fun things that you like doing, you're like treating the root cause in several different areas. You're getting your blood pressure under control without pills, ultimately, is what I think you'll find in the vast majority of people. So I don't know if you're doing all those things, but if you're not, you could set about on a plan. And if your plan doesn't work, then you can counsel with one of the medical students for free. Let them talk with you and do a little motivational interviewing, like what might be keeping you from doing this? What are the barriers in your life that are not allowing you to kind of achieve your goal and to follow through with the plans you make? So there are different strategies that you can incorporate to help you get there. Asking for help is fine. And that's what these classes are all about.
And if you want the more, that's a great summary. If you want more detail, if you go back into the class archives from earlier this year, back on May 10th. May 10th is when we had the high blood pressure class. So you could rewatch that class, or if you didn't attend that class back in May 10th, you could watch that.
Okay. And
And
what role does sodium play in the
Yeah.
blood pressure.
So
Huge role.
sodium can play a huge role also. And where do you get sodium? You're not taking and adding a bunch of salt onto your food all day long. It's probably coming from that occasional chicken or processed food that you might be getting at the market or at the restaurant or from a friend. And you just say, hey, a little bit won't hurt me, but you should keep your sodium content less than 1,500 milligrams a day. That's no more than 2/3 for all the food that you're eating in a day. Are you doing that? Are you keeping track like that or not really?
I pay attention to products. And that's how I know that they are so full of sodium and added sugar. Everything on the shelf.
Yes.
I just at my work, I just saw a can of Progresso soup that somebody had for lunch, and it had 2,400 milligrams of sodium in just one can of soup. And so they ate that. That was one meal, and that's like already almost twice what the sodium intake they should have for the whole day, and that was just one can of soup. So it's yeah.
That's why if you're just eating foods as they're grown in nature, like off the tree or from the ground, and they're not processed in a package, you're probably going to get your blood pressure under control, is what the bottom line is here.
Okay.
Yeah, keep coming to class. You know, sometimes it takes multiple episodes. It's sort of like quitting smoking. Sometimes you have to quit 20 times before you eventually get there. Sometimes you need to hear this over and over again. You know, our body's like, I don't want to have to do something different. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but we'll keep answering. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I jumped back in again because since you brought up stress in relation to blood pressure,
Yeah,
I'm reminded, and it had actually come up again recently, that I don't know if the resource is available in Eugene, but I spent a year and a half daily doing biofeedback after I was in a plane crash.
yeah.
And it was a miracle for me in terms of pain control. I never had to take any kind of pain medication for my injuries or anything, but that's another story. Many companions in the place where we were being trained and helped were lowering their blood pressure simply with biofeedback alone. And it was a powerful effect. And I know it's still being used in many places. Duke University still has their big biofeedback lab. And I don't know if it's available locally, but that is a powerful resource that I feel is underutilized for things that are autonomic things that can be controlled once you can become conscious and learn the technique. I mean, it's amazing. So anyway, I just wanted it in there in the list.
Nancy, thank you so much for sharing that. It really is important for people to hear that there are benefits from doing these other techniques. And biofeedback is one of them, and meditation and yoga and, you know, just finding things that you enjoy, or you can focus your attention on the here and now. They do work, but it takes doing them.
Yes, it takes doing them. Yeah, you said it. That's it. Yeah.
I tried biofeedback and I got rid of migraines after doing it for some time.
Yeah, that is another one of the conditions. Thank you, Dorothea. That's fabulous.
Was that here locally?
Yes, it was. But the woman who was doing it, I don't know if she is still doing it any longer.
Okay. If anybody knows or is doing biofeedback, that would be good for us to know, that we could share with people too. Scott, this has been fun.
Can anybody?
Go ahead, Ariston.
Can someone briefly explain biofeedback? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, I can take a shot and then other people can correct me or add things. The basic principle is there are three different ways that you can get biofeedback. You can get by following brain waves or measures of muscular tension or measures of temperature. For mine, it was the muscular thing, keeping the muscles from grasping around injured body parts. The idea is that there are many processes in the body that are just handled unconsciously and automatically. You're not aware of it. But if you can work with one of these machines that can show you that what is happening, like for me, it was the amount of muscular tension. I had electrodes all over my head, the amount of muscular tension. And you can, by a process of focus and relaxation, learn the connection between the thoughts you're thinking and what you're doing with your body and the lowering and smoothing out of those waves. And as soon as you get a way to have the feedback, correlating what you're doing with what's happening that's usually unconscious, you can start exerting conscious control over previously unconscious phenomena in your body. Now, that's my, does that make any sense?
That was a great explanation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I know a lot of sports psychologists use it for professional athletes, just to control their bodies. And, so like, a quarterback that's in a high pressure situation, they do, well, it's, they kind of, do role play, like they go through that situation over and over when they're just laying down, meditating or whatever, going through it over and over. And then I know I've heard something about, biofeedback being used for high level athletes in some of those situations.
In my mind, it's sort of like learning to swing a tennis racket. When you first grab the racket and they tell you what to do, you don't really know exactly how to do it, the angle to hold it and the other thing, but you hit and the ball splays off to the side or whatever, and you keep hitting and you keep hitting. And pretty soon it becomes sort of unconscious and natural to swing the racket in the correct way that allows you to kind of hit the ball where you want it to go. And this you're doing with just your mind.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, it's way cool.
Yeah, thanks,
It
Nancy.
saved me.
Yeah.
Can I have a last question? I promise I'm not going to ask again today.
It's okay.
We
You've
love
been
your
great.
questions.
So it's about greens or vegetables in general. Are there greens that are better eaten without steaming or cooking, or can I cook them?
Well, Dr. Greger's official response is eat the greens however you'll eat the most of them. And so, but he does have some cool videos on nutritionfacts.org about what's the, get the highest ORAC value, the antioxidant value out of a food and nutrient value out of a food with certain types of cooking, steaming versus boiling versus microwave, baking, frying, all the different things. It's kind of interesting, but I think that, we could try to find that and play it, but I think it's I think the ultimate theme is just, well, eat them however you eat the most of them. Obviously you don't want to take a potato and fry it in oil because now it's not healthy anymore, but see, there is some extremes to that, some exceptions to that, but yeah, whether you like certain vegetables raw, and it's always good to, I think the other consensus is try to eat some raw vegetables too. So some cooked, some raw, 50-50, some people will say, and there's people that go more raw, but I think the ultimate is just, well, if you only like this particular vegetable when it's steamed, then eat it steamed, and however you cook it, that allows you to eat the most of it.
Do you like steamed or do you like raw better?
I cook better. I mean, I like them steamed or sauteed or, now that I'm going out of frying, that's I'm not gonna fry anything.
So you
yes.
could fry or steam using water or vegetable broth. as opposed to oil.
And then there's air fryers too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
thank you.
quick, you guys were getting into the stress and meditation and relaxation. I think Scott mentioned to my dad that once he started this diet, his dopamine levels would decrease
Huh.
or like down
Yeah.
baseline. And I guess I was wondering what the psychological effects are of the diet. Do you feel like happier? Do you feel like more focused or something?
You feel worse potentially for a week or two. Yeah, you know, when you're eating foods that are high in calorie density, like meat, eggs, and dairy, they have a high fat and calorie density. They kick up the dopamine in your brain, so you're feeling a little better. When you're eating lower calorie density foods, initially, your brain says, hey, I liked eating the junk food better. Tastes better. I get more dopamine from those foods. So it's going to take you about 2-3 weeks. That's why we say do a 21-day or a 30-day kickstart. Give your body a chance to adjust. Don't think that because the first 2 weeks you're not feeling as good. But after the 3rd or 4th week, pretty soon your body says, I like this. And I'm used to it now, and I'm used to a lower level of dopamine bathing my brain, and I'm good with this, and I'm liking the health that I feel. There's a book called The Pleasure Trap, which kind of goes into this a bit. There's a video on it too. I don't know if you put that on, Scott. Whether we have
it's not on the website. The Pleasure Trap one. I know you played it in class not too long ago.
Yeah. So we can go over that again with you, but you know, most people do pretty well after a few weeks, but try not to get discouraged for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And just make sure you're not hungry. Make sure you're eating enough calories so that you don't say, I'm starving here, you know, no way I want to do this. And then as you add more and more spices and you get variety of different foods, pretty soon it becomes more interesting and your taste buds are now starting to taste the food instead of just the salt, sugar, and the fat that you're so used to in the standard American diet. Pretty soon you're saying, hey, this actually tastes pretty good. And pretty soon you start to crave it when you don't get it.
A good example of that is some of the live-in programs like at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, where they do fasting and then they reintroduce a whole food plant-based diet. But like a lot of people that are there, it's like when they come in there kicking and screaming, your chef is terrible. This food doesn't taste like anything. This is terrible. And then by the end of like 3 weeks or so, they say, wow, your chef's really gotten the hang of this now. This actually really tastes good now. It's like, it's the same food. It's just their taste buds have changed. A good example of it I like to give about your taste changing is, have you ever drank whole milk and then switched to skim milk? It's like, so what did you think? Yeah. So if you were used to whole milk, what did you think when the first few times you had the skim milk? What did you think of it?
It was basically like water.
Yeah,
right. It's terrible, right? Mm-hmm. It's like blue. It's like water. It's like doesn't taste like anything. It's horrible. And then after say 3-4 weeks of drinking skim milk, you got used to it. And then what would happen if you drank the whole milk again? It's like, oh, that's like really thick and like a shake. It's like, so your tastes will change no matter what the food is. So, yeah.
Ariston, Dr. Colgrove put in a video clip for you that you can watch about the Pleasure Trap. It's in the
really
chat
good video.
room.
It's a really good video. So yeah, check out the chat and watch that video.
Thanks, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, this has been such fun.
Yep.
It's been an hour and a half. I didn't think we would be going this well, but we're really happy to have all the questions. And we're going to do this again, I guess, next week. I was going to say, how about we do a half a session next week, give people a break, but this was pretty fun.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I thought the same thing, but yeah, we got just one more week before we start the new year.
If you
Have a
have
good holiday,
questions,
guys.
and if you have questions, that's fine. We'll do it again. If not, we'll play, what? Rip Esselstyn's,
Well,
video.
that's right. You were going to play that, the six-headed
Well, we could do that
monster.
if, you know, if there's no one who has any questions, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like we've got some, people who really wanna go at us with the guns ablazing.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Eric?
Unmute yourself, Eric.
Oh, I was just saying, have a good holiday. Why are you gonna want
Oh,
to play
yeah.
a video though? Is that what you're saying, Charlie?
Yeah,
You're playing
so we had one more video, you know, Rip Esselstyn's,
Yeah.
slaying the dragon. It's
Yeah, let's do that.
well, okay, so we'll plan on doing that. But if
next
we
week?
have questions, we're gonna do questions, is what we're gonna do. And then if no questions, we'll do that other. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a good holiday. Lisa Chick said she couldn't make it tonight, but wished everybody a happy Merry Christmas, and our medical student. And gosh, this has been great. It's been a wonderful year, actually. Scott, thank you. Eric, and all the rest of the group people who have contributed so frequently. It's really a joy for us and inspiring.
Yeah.
So for us new
Merry
people,
Christmas, everybody.
we're just
Yeah.
blown away that this is a free resource. Thank you so much for the hosts and all of you. And we plan to learn quite a bit. And next week, I'll tell you how my first Christmas that is vegan goes.
That's great.
Nice.
That's great.
Nice.
And if you have any questions, you can send us email. We'll get back in touch if something comes up. You know, we don't charge for anything that we do here. And we just want to be a support system. And sometimes questions come up and you just want to know. And you don't want to wait for another week. So we take those. So just send us an email. Scott has the, you know, send it to him. He sends it on if he's not going to answer it. To me, if he wants to answer it, he answers it. And, you know, we've got a good thing going here. It's been fun.
And then also, if you noticed in the class email on Sunday, we have the Eugene Plant-Based Providers. We have our next event scheduled. So Saturday, February 25th at the Springfield First Christian Church, where I used to teach the classes live before the pandemic. We're going to have a movie social. So we're going to play the Plant-Wise movie. We plan to have vegetables and fruit, maybe some hummus, and well, it's like a 45-minute documentary, and then the rest of the time before and after we'll just socialize and chat and everything. And so that information is in the class newsletter. You can also go to the Eugene Plant-Based Provider website, and under the upcoming events, it's information's there. I have had Sean put a sign up in there so we can kind of get an idea of how many people are going to come. I know it's still a ways off, February 25th, but just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that.
And I noticed, Dr. Ross, you're speaking for UC down in Roseburg, aren't you?
Yeah, so UC Veg asked me to come
Yes.
down and for their potluck on the 21st. And I told them if the weather is okay, I'll come down. And so they just are advertising, assuming that there's not going to be ice on the ground. But if there's ice on the ground, that could be a problem. They're going to have to come and pick me up.
Is that the 21st? This week?
Of January.
Oh, January. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll be telling them. We started classes down in Roseburg, and then they became a Blue Zone project. And what I was going to do is share with them what's been going on with Eugene, and how there's the Eugene Plant-Based Providers, and how things have gone up in this area to compare what has happened down in their area, and just have fun with them, because I know a lot of the people down there. It's going to be a potluck, an in-person potluck. So I imagine that if there was anyone interested in driving all the way to Roseburg, you're probably welcome to come, but it's kind of a long way in winter like that. So anyway, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I hope the weather cooperates.
All right, well, till next week, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Happy
This was
holidays.
great, everyone. Thank you. Have a
Fun
good one.
class. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.